Yeah, we're rolling.
See levels.
Yeah, you have levels. Hello, I'm Brian J. Davis, and I'm here with Emily Schultz. She's the author of the novel The Blondes. And in 2019, we adapted that and created a podcast version. Now, Emily,
Yes.
why the hell did we do that?
Why did we do that? I think that it was my idea, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
I'm going to take credit for it. Because I said, what can we do that's within our skill set?
Mm-hmm.
What can we develop that doesn't require us to have the kind of money, that you would need to make a film?
Now, in 2019, you received the rights back from AMC. They had held the rights for 2 years, of which we were employed for some of that, to develop a TV series, and we had a whole bunch of ideas. And, at the end of the option, as happens every day in Hollywood, we had ideas, but really no place to go. So podcasting seemed to be it.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it was within our wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm. You had hosted and I produced a podcast for you already. And, we realized, we know actors, we know how to record, we know musicians, and yeah, we decided to go for it. This is where you talk about remastering.
This is where I talk about remastering.
Do you know anything about remastering, Emily?
No. I'll give you credit here. The remastering was your idea.
It is because, for those who don't know what that is, that's just where you take something that you think should be louder and make it loud. And usually you can sell an album again and say, oh yeah, this one is definitely better. But there were some, as wonderful as the production of the Blondes podcast was, with the cast, the crew, and all our directors, I really did bite off a little more than I could chew with the mixing. And so we're talking, I think some of these tracks had like 28 tracks on average. So for a podcast, that's insane. For a movie or TV show, that's about average. For a complex scene. But again, we decided to really do immersive storytelling. And I ended up really in the weeds. And we had a deadline because we had ads in place. We're going to release it on this date. And I ended up blowing the deadline with the mastering engineer. So that essentially, instead of having a week to master these episodes, which is to, put the finishing touches on, get the volume set, listen in on a few different things, we ended up having to master these episodes in an afternoon. So it was not bad, but I always felt like it could be better. So that's why I decided to revisit it. And really it was it's been I want to say 5 years, but it's actually been 5.5 year anniversary now of not only the Blondes podcast, but ultimately what's really shaped its fate, which is COVID-19.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is I'm interested to see the episodes be released again, because I think that we have a different perception now that we've all lived through a pandemic.
Right. So, again, going back to this was released in July and August of 2019. We had done the production over the spring here in New York, and then in LA, where we had most of our cast members and another director, Duncan Birmingham. So that was our production, and we put it together over the summer, made our release date, and I would say it was a success early on. We were talking about this, it actually charted. We did do social media campaign, and I remember great things wow, famous people are liking this on Facebook, right? We got a heart from Joey Arias, which I felt was very much a job well done.
Yeah, that's a good stamp of approval.
A good stamp of approval. So anyways, we felt comfortable with that success. But again, this is, August, September. What's happening in the world? We were paying attention to it. I know that. Because of we were just so immersed in the Blondes and getting all these alerts from the CDC that we were just signed up for. It's we were paying attention to what was happening in China and Italy at the time.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something we've discussed. People thought we were a little bit paranoid when we were going to meetings with a bottle of sanitizer.
They might have been truly offended even as we were wiping our hands there.
And then a couple months later, no one was offended by that behavior. So,
but yeah, and I've said this before, which is like, prophecy and $3, that gets you a donut at Peter Pan. Like, no one wants to be like the prophet of doom who is proved correct. Like, there's not a lot of honor in it, or...
Yeah, I would prefer not to be proven correct.
Conspiracy theorists in the novel, but in no way did you predict that would actually become the norm, or they would set the tone of culture and science.
No,
right?
Exactly.
And this is one of the failures of the people who really run the world. I don't mean just the government, but life itself, is they really overestimate it. That phrase, "we're all in this together." Like, and people really didn't really account for the wildly different impacts across socio-economic spectrum. And how fucked up people would get by it.
I did have a little bit of that in the book, in terms of like people's habits and that kind of thing, and who was impacted.
But we definitely corrected that and accentuated that in the podcast with the Rob Belushi conspiracy podcaster. So that part we did get right, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, I don't want to have this show be like us sitting around patting our backs, but I will say, like, Rob.
We got plenty wrong. We'll talk about, but yeah, the Rob Belushi segment.
He did an amazing job. I mean,
I was there in the room. I still fist my body. The body remembers. The body remembers laughing so hard at Rob Belushi that I feel like my spleen might be splitting in two.
Do we need to actually, like, we're doing this show and assuming that people know what this material is. Do we need to say what it is?
It is episode number 5. I hope they've listened to. I guess if you're, if you don't want spoilers, this is where you would stop and go back. But yeah, I mean, like, that was part of what we got right. I think we got, and when I look back and think, okay, we had an influencer character, right? Hopefully that was early on enough that, that doesn't feel too shameful now, because of course influencer characters are everywhere. But the way that influencers would also take up the mantle of anti-science. So, and I think we did get that right. And we're going to stop congratulating ourselves in a second. But, to go back to what happened with the podcast, which we are pretty sure no one would ever want to listen to this again or read your book in the middle of a pandemic. And that turned out to not be true. That the listenership did go up. It actually went through the roof. And we were contacted by producers from France, the Sibel Network, who wanted to license it for multilingual versions. And in the middle of the pandemic, I think this was probably even before, this around March 20.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, March 20 going into the spring and the summer.
It was very much during lockdown that we were emailing back and forth with them.
And so, I have to admit that felt good that we did something right and other people wanted to hear it.
One of the interesting things was that when it was successful in France, and they told us that it was #1 on their network, except for the erotic show.
Right. And
we had rivaled the erotic show.
Right. Sort of like, we were de facto #1, except for and it wasn't, they didn't even say erotica show. The text message from the producer was, you are #1, except for porn show.
New York, ville cosmopolite, était parée à cette éventualité depuis bien longtemps. Le maire a mobilisé tous les médecins, soignants et
la conférence de Davos a viré au bain de sang quand les milliardaires ont commencé à s'attaquer.
La fièvre est un des symptômes. Si vous n'avez pas de fièvre...
Ce virus est particulièrement redoutable. Il est mortel et se propage à la vitesse de l'éclair.
Nous n'allons pas fermer les aéroports. Comment le virus a-t-il pu arriver jusqu'en ville, je me le demande. Cette maladie s'appelle le virus siphonacien.
So thank you to France.
Now, I think we should just jump back to, we talked earlier about what we got right. Let's talk about what we got wrong. And one of the big things we got wrong was the future of scripted podcasts. because I believe that I was a little like I thought I was a little gung ho. I thought, yeah, this is just another great avenue that everyone can take part in. Like, this is going to be like a new democratic medium for adapting stories.
I think I felt that way as well, and I was surprised that there weren't more like narrative fiction podcasts, which is what this is, right?
Right. But as we learned, we were probably one of the few that went so over the top with our sound design to make it seem like you were experiencing a film or TV. And that, I think, is probably what scared most people away from producing scripted podcasts, was the amount of work needed in terms of doing that sound design, of composing music, etc. And now you say podcast. I mean, this is one thing, since we've been revisiting this podcast, like, you say podcast to someone, they think it's something you watch on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's a talk show now.
It's a talk
usually
show.
3 guys and some energy drinks.
Or 2 novelists sitting at their computers, like, you know,
Right.
cities apart.
Right. But, yeah, I mean, if we redid the Blondes, that's probably part of the mediascape we'd have to, like, focus in on, is like some kind of, like, man podcast where they're sitting around for 3 hours. And so, yeah, I think that's what we got. So we got a little bit of podcasting, the future podcasting, right, with the Belushi character. But, you know, I think we got wrong the interest in fictional podcasts.
But I kind of love that about this, is it just, we just went for it.
Right. It is quixotic.
Yeah, I mean, it's bigger than like a radio play.
So I guess since we've been re-listening for the first time in years, Emily, what's your favorite part of the podcast?
Oh, so this is such a novelist thing to say, but my favorite part of the podcast is Madeline Zima doing the subway attack scene. And part of the reason that's my favorite is that's the scene that I often read aloud whenever I was invited to do a reading. But it's also the emotion that she really brought to it. And I was not in the room for that recording. You went and recorded the Los Angeles actors, and I was here for the New York actors.
Right. I cried. It was like, yeah, being in a room with someone as good as Madeline Zeman acting away those words that, you know, you wrote and together adapted. It was intense.
And
So
I hear it. It comes through.
And yeah, I mean, and again, like, in revisiting, this is what I thought is like, holy shit, every single performance is amazing. And that, you know, that was just, you know, the grace that was visited upon the show, is that we got fantastic actors from Rob Belushi.
I was going to say Helen Hong, who plays kind of an NPR-like host.
Who's now, believes she's on NPR, so... Again, a great twist. But to go back to Madeline Zima and her sister Yvonne Zima, they were key. They were drafted for this through Duncan Birmingham, and we also knew them through
Joyland magazine.
We had published Yvonne because she's a fantastic writer. But once they came on, everyone else came on, so they were key to this.
And then Jenny Malcolm, who's here in New York. Interesting thing is she brought in a lot of the New York players and the actors, Carson Elrod and Bree Elrod.
Right. Bree Elrod, who went on quite after, I think probably right after this, to Sean Baker's Red Rocket, and she's awesome in that. That movie is hilarious, and please see it.
Yeah. Jenny also brought in Dana Berger
from Orange is the New Black.
Yeah. And the segments that they did were just really fantastic. But an interesting story is that how the pandemic impacted them is Jenny and Carson together went on to form an arts organization called Be an Arts Hero.
Right, to support Broadway and actors during
COVID.
During the shutdown. So yeah, that was one of the, that's one of the other, another, you know, dovetailing of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going on a tangent, but
it's okay. It's actually, I think on a podcast, a tangent is okay. And Cecilia Corrigan, she did a German accent sustained for 10 minutes. It was very difficult to do.
In a kind of like TEDx talk, or maybe it was like a real TED talk.
And she now has a very successful one-woman show.
The Gay Divorce.
So we are glad to have Cecilia there. And she had a very, to do like a Peter Sellers German accent for 10 minutes. And that actually was the one issue with the French translation, where we got this kind of weird missive of like, is this German accent supposed to be funny? Because it doesn't sound like a German accent, first of all.
Oh, yes, this was in the translation, of course.
Yeah, they didn't get the idea of like how funny we find German accents.
What was your favorite part of the podcast, Brian?
Well, I think probably just because my background, I think doing the music. The score was by my brother J.D. Davis. And then we brought our friend Don Lewis in because we have a pop song. Now in the novel, there's a blonde rabies survivor named
Shelby Brown.
Shelby Brown, and it's kind of just mentioned offhandedly in the novel, and we really grew it, and we decided, okay, we're gonna have a blonde, pop anthem here, like our version of Wrecking Ball. So, I did the lyrics on that, the first few passes that we brought Don in, who did the music, and then, as we talk about, it's like you reminded us that we actually had some very crazy verses we had to take out because Dawn just shook her head like, I can't sing this. So whatever you hear that's crazy enough, like it was probably far worse. But that song to me is my favorite accomplishment that we did, to come up with a fake pop song. It's like when you do any kind of like sort of like a fake movie within a movie or acting with the acting, it's really tough to have it not have that sheen of fake. That is just something like, pasted in. So to have a pop song come off as a real pop song, that was the thing that I look back with a lot of, satisfaction.
Yeah.
And, working with Dawn on that.
And I think that speaks to her talent, your talent as well. And you mentioned your background, but you didn't really bring it up, which is that, it probably should be said that you have a background in both writing and music because you worked for the Blocks Recording Club.
I did help run a record label, but even before that, I'm going to say some embarrassing words as a multimedia artist for much of my 20s. So, but that's just the world I came out of. And that's maybe why we were able to pull off the podcast, because we do come from the DIY world, right? Where it's like, oh, you don't know how to put out an album? You figure it out. You don't know how to put out a book? You put out a chapbook.
Yeah. Early on, I realized that if you want to make something cool, you can. You have to be willing to ask people, and you have to be willing to put together just a little bit of money so that everybody has some kind of payment.
Mm-hmm. Now, to go back to some of the emails we got for the podcast during the middle of the pandemic, when people were like, why hasn't this been sold to Hollywood yet? And I have to tell you that there were some discussions with Hollywood, and Hollywood basically said no. Now this is a couple years by now into the pandemic, and Emily, do you want to drop the best line ever given by a network executive?
Does it have to be about a pandemic?
I hope everyone has that moment in their career where they could just say, that's it, we're out. And we did. We just said, you know what? This is not working. And, maybe that executive wasn't wrong, that people weren't ready for this yet. And so unless we were going to take our show a novel about a pandemic and take the pandemic out, we weren't really going to get far with it.
No, I don't know what that adaptation would look like, honestly.
There was actually even funnier follow-up, which is maybe season 3.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe season 3. Like, they were timing it in their minds of, like, get the show now, take a really slow burn, and then we'll get to, like, the pandemic.
We'll do the prequel that doesn't exist. Yeah, that was never said, but yeah.
So, that's when we said, you know what? We're doing other things. Let's just put the blondes to bed. Maybe if the podcast is it, we're proud of it. And if that's it, great. But you went on, you wrote other books. You wrote books, and you put books out during the middle of the pandemic as well, which is also equally fun.
Oh, yeah, that was fun.
Jump forward a couple years. I think it's 2023, and we were doing a mini-series pitch for one of your books, Little Threats. And we actually got it pretty far in development, and then...
The actor's strike.
The actor's strike. It's been a calamitous 5 years. I got to say that.
I think for everyone.
I know. We're sitting here looking at the Christmas tree right now. Christmas Eve. We just had some apple cider, and we are reminiscing on some of the worst things of the last 5 years. But so the actor strike happened, and of course that comes to a halt. And that's when we said to ourselves, is it time to look at the blondes again? Like, can we, take a completely different approach?
Yeah, and so now it's in development for feature film, which, I'll give you credit this time, which is that you said, let's just try to write a feature, and we did. We
did.
Sat down and wrote a script.
Yeah, and what I found is and when we are doing pitching or trying to do that agonizing non-pitching during the pandemic, there's just so many asterisks and quotation marks and talking around the pandemic.
Right.
And none of that was here this time because in a way the pandemic is now our co-author because everyone lived through it. Everyone lived through it, and we don't have to preach. And that's the best thing for a writer to do. We don't have to preach. And say this is what we experienced or this is how you should experience it. It just is, and we're able to tell this story of the blonde pandemic, to people who have lived through one.
Except the thing we have to still prove is why blondes? Why only blondes?
But yeah, I think that's part of the fun of the pitch. That has never stopped.
No, I agree. So I just want to say thank you to all the listeners. If you came back and you've enjoyed this podcast, we really appreciate it, especially after all this time.
Thank you.
You were scared, 'cause I was your first blonde. For you I shaved off my hair 8 years long. All your hurts set off Amber Alerts. I saw something, I'm gonna say something. It's my time to thrive. Stand in my way, I'll eat you alive. 'Cause I'm not your blonde anymore. You're the one who's wrong. I used to grow my hair back. Now I'm on the attack. I'm not your blonde anymore. You're the one who's wrong. My touch is like Wolverine. Boy, I'll put you into quarantine. You wouldn't let me go down. Called my scalp lethal. Said it was like getting with Vin Diesel. All your hurts set off Amber Alerts. I saw something, I'm gonna say something. It's my time to thrive. Stand in my way, I'll eat you alive. 'Cause I'm not your blonde anymore. You're the one who's wrong. I used to grow my hair back. Now I'm on the attack. I'm not your blonde anymore. You're the one who's wrong. My touch is like Wolverine. Boy, I'll put you into quarantine. I'll put you in, boy, quarantine. I was raised to smile and please until I got the blonde disease. I was raised to smile and please until I got the blonde disease that set me free. It's my